Welcome to 5 Minutes in the Word, a daily devotional in the Word of God.
Mr. Gary, here on 5 Minutes, we like to talk about different Bible characters. And today, our character is going to come, or one of the major stories that we know about this one particular character comes from 1 Kings 18. And this is the story of Elijah defeating the prophets of Baal, starting in verse 20. What else can we learn from Elijah?
Elijah's an interesting character. I like him. He's one of the, not to say I wouldn't want to meet anybody in the Bible, but
Yeah.
He's one I really would like to meet because he and Jeremiah seemed to suffer a fair amount for what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And all they were doing is what God asked them to do. So he enters the story somewhat in the reign of King Ahab. And that's what you're referring to, at least a part of it,
Yeah.
just a minute ago, when God tells him to proclaim a drought.
Mm-hmm.
And he's supposed to pray, and there's going to be a drought. That's in chapter 17. And that intensifies, I think, a conflict between he and Ahab.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ahab basically wants his way. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, he wants his way. He'd be perfect living in our day, because that's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah.
And so, but they end up confronting one another. You talked about the great confrontation between Elijah representing God and the prophets of Baal representing Baal. And most everybody knows that story.
Yeah.
It's what follows that is almost stunning to me, because here's a guy who has been so strong. Whatever the Lord told him to do, he did it. He faced Ahab face to face. He faced the prophets of Baal face to face. And then you get to chapter 19 after he's wiped out the prophets of Baal with the help of the people,
Mm-hmm.
who finally realize, God really is God.
Mm-hmm.
Then chapter 19 opens up with, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. Also, how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So let the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time." In other words, you're a dead man, Elijah.
Yeah.
I said, just putting it simply. And he runs.
Mm-hmm.
He stood up to Ahab. He stood up to the prophets of Baal. He doesn't seem to have any fear because of God, of course. But now he runs, and I really don't know what's going on here. If there's a possibility that if you look at it in psychological terms, and I had to talk to other people to find this out,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a possibility that he was on such a high coming off of the defeat of the prophets of Baal and God being exalted back to where he belongs, at least for a moment,
Yeah.
with the people, that following that there's a downside that comes after all that adrenaline just kind of drains out of your body.
Yeah.
That may be what happens, but he goes off and he ends up just, I would say, depressed. And he lays down in the wilderness under a broom tree. God first makes him eat and drink, because depressed people don't always do that. And then he sleeps a little more, and then he's told to eat and drink again. And then God comes to him. And he doesn't come in the fashion that we might expect, some roaring, instead it's a small, quiet voice that speaks to him. And now God gives him an assignment, and it looks to me like the combination of eat, drink, and sleep, which he needed,
Yeah.
followed by this, is what solves his problem. And so, beginning in verse 15 of 1 Kings 19 says, "Then the Lord said to him, 'Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you arrive, anoint Hazael as king over Syria. Also, you shall anoint Jehu the son of Nimshi as king over Israel, and Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel Meholah you shall anoint as a prophet in your place. It shall be that whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill, and whoever escapes the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill. Yet I've reserved 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. So, what do I get out of this? I get when you're depressed, you get up and focus on something else. The depression usually means I'm focused on me and me only. Of course, eat, drink, sleep, very important. Body's got to have a certain amount of that. But then take up a task, and he does. But then there's a side light, which kind of doesn't have anything to do with Elijah in one way, but it's God's prophecy through Elijah what's getting ready to happen. And that is that all the wicked people in Israel are going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
They're going to be dealt with. And even by Elisha, which is almost startling. I know Elijah helped with the killing of the prophets of Baal, but you usually don't think of a prophet in those terms.
Yeah.
And yet here he is. That's what happens. And God is looking forward to one fact, that there's still 7,000. I don't kill them because they've never yielded to Baal. So Elijah, to me, sets a beautiful example and kind of helps us if we're down just a little bit.
Absolutely. Just to tack on just a little bit, those 7,000 people. Sometimes when we feel depressed, it feels like we're all alone.
Yeah.
But as we see here, that there are 7,000 other people who had not bowed down to Baal and did not kiss him. So it's comforting to know too that though we may feel that we're all alone, truly we're not.